the Dr. Joe Show, and we have Jim Wahlberg in studio of Wall Street Productions, and we just witnessed an unbelievable production of If Only over at the local high school here in Marshfield, and we are chatting about that right now with Mr. Wahlberg.
Yeah. And there's this scene that we were just talking about, the funeral scene, and real snow, and all these people. And Tony, you wanted to mention something because you were there too, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, in my case, it was less than 8 months where I'd been at my own son's funeral, and some of this, as Jim mentioned, there are a lot of people, hadn't even had the funeral yet. It was only 2 or 3 days, but we had to do about 6 takes for that scene, and the priest couldn't quite get it right all the different times. But to see the coffin come in and go out and come in and go out was the most heart-wrenching thing, because everybody that was in there brought back very vivid recent memories, and that was the toughest thing one of the toughest things I ever did.
Yeah.
It was hard to watch on film.
It was.
To be present for that.
And then Jim, when you were doing the intro to the film, you said that was a pivotal moment for you as well.
Well, it was, as I said earlier tonight, and I've said pretty much every time I've shown the film, the thing is, we write this script, somebody gives us the money to make the movie, right? And you go and hire all these people, they're your team, to make the film. And, in my role as the producer, I'm sort of in charge of all those people and worrying about these people and their money. And I truly kind of lost sight of what we were doing in that moment. It was a lot of moving parts. And when they started to bring that coffin down, it became painfully real again. There was no distractions anymore. There was no sort of worrying about the words came out of my mouth. I don't care how long this takes now. Now, what do we do? What do we do? Do we hug? Do we talk? Do we somebody tell me what to do? Because I honestly didn't know what to do. And we've traveled with many of the people that were in that room, in that church that day. We've traveled around the country. We did an opioid youth summit in Manchester, New Hampshire. We had 10,000 kids. And the parents from Massachusetts came. And then we went to, did you come to us with the DEA headquarters?
We were at the Songa Center too.
Yeah. Did you come to the DEA
I went to both of them.
We were asked by the DEA to come to D.C. to their headquarters to show the film. And they have a theater inside their building, and we showed the film to about 1,000 employees, agents, secretaries, every job, every position, but they also streamed it live to all the field offices around the world.
Wow.
And we brought, I think, about 50 parents from Massachusetts, and my friend will get very upset, but my friend Mark Ginsberg, I talked to him about it, and he was like, okay, what can we do? How can we get them all there? They should all be there. How do we make it work? He bought everybody a flight. He bought everybody a flight. And they came, we went, and the thing about law enforcement, I had a lot to say about law enforcement tonight, as I do on most occasions, because I'm just in awe of their willingness to look at this thing in a different way. Just a completely different way, right? Because their job is to arrest people and lock them up if you're breaking the law, right? And now this thing has touched so many people in such a deep, sad way, right? That they've been able to just look at it as like, this could be my family next week, instead of we got to lock these people up.
Right.
And this really, I think, is part of the change. I'm not exactly sure why the change is happening, but it's happening. One of my phrases is, addiction is not about morality, it's about mortality. It's just the way the brain works, and being able not to medicalize it, because we don't want to create this model where there's a disorder. I don't like the word disorder at all. I don't use disorder, because disorder means you've got one group that's ordered and one group that isn't, and then we're astonished that we have stigma.
Right.
So you've been doing this. What do you think it is? Why is there this movement now? Is it because people are What do you think? Why now? Why is it
I
happening?
want to speak to that, Tony, first, if you don't mind, just because I want to say something. I want to say that this is different than just a bunch of people that are addicts, right? And I don't even know what the politically correct term is. I'm not much of a politically correct guy, right? People, young people, old people, senior citizens, people who have never exhibited any kind of addictive nature whatsoever in any way were turned into full-blown addicts in a very short time by these pharmaceutical companies, right? They changed the game and they changed the face of addiction, okay? They conspired against us to fill their pockets with money, right? So this is a very different thing, you know, that a lot of these young people, like, I got started when I was a kid, man. I had my first drink when I was 8. I was hanging in the street, homeless at 12, right? I was out there, right? And so it wasn't like hard to see what was happening with me or where I was headed, right? But we're talking about young people that had no, they're great young kids,
young
smart,
athletes,
it's beautiful.
or getting a tooth pulled.
Yeah, exactly.
So do you guys, I'm going to get to you in a moment, Tom, but do you know the numbers from 2007? CDC put out the numbers, and this is the thing that where maybe it started. They took all the prescription pain medicine, right, and converted it to Vicodin. So all the Percocet and Oxy and everything, said, okay, we're going to call them Vicodin equivalents. Enough Vicodin was prescribed in the United States in 2007 so that every single one of the more than 300 million people could have 5 milligrams of Vicodin every 4 hours for 3 weeks. Every 4 hours for 3 weeks. And another way to look at it, Vicodin is about 7 millimeters long. You take Vicodin and you stack them end to end. That amount of Vicodin would reach from here to the moon and back and 3 times around the earth. That's what was going on with the pharmaceutical companies. And, you know, we were, as a physician, you know, we were culpable as well in our own way. I hope innocently. But, you know, somebody comes in, you know, from a sports injury, and you write them, you know, 30 Percocet, for God's sakes. You know, or somebody's getting a tooth pulled. Yeah, you know, here's 30 perks.
And then they sit in the medicine cabinet in the bathroom.
Like in the movie.
Right.
Like in your movie. They sit there in the But, wow. So, Tony, well, you were going to say...
Well, I could go many different directions, but if you look at the deposition that Maura Healey did with Richard Sackler. Richard Sackler was the CEO of Purdue Pharma, the maker of OxyContin and oxycodone. They're based down in Stamford, Connecticut. He said back in 1997 or 98, he said that when the people get addicted, we'll just make them out to be scoundrels and abusers of the drug. And he wrote that in emails.
Wow.
And when people say, when the doctors ask you if it's addictive, you say less than 1%. Because Jeremiah Jick did a survey for 10,000 people in 1980, and it went into the American Medical Journal. And he said less than 0.3% got addicted. Well, that test was only for 3 days, and those people were all hospitalized.
Yeah.
Little different, you know.
Little different.
And so, and I don't think the stigma is over yet by any means.
Not. No,
because
it's not.
now, I think though what's changing is we have all these lawsuits, all the publications are coming out. Everybody's now understanding that this whole epidemic started because of too many prescriptions. And people say, oh, it's coming down. Well, in 2018, we wrote 288 million prescriptions for opioids. In 2019, we wrote 244 million for opioids. I just got my knee replaced 8 weeks ago. They kept pushing and pushing and pushing. Oh, you need to get this. You need to have this prescription filled. You're going to be in pain. Well, pain isn't so bad. You can't get opioids in Germany. You can't get your wisdom teeth out in England and get opioids. It doesn't happen. They give you ibuprofen and ice and send you home. You know, and we brainwashed our doctors, thanks to Richard Sackler. brainwashed them, send out sexy women and sexy guys to talk to the doctors, give them incentives like write so many prescriptions and get a bonus, go to the Caribbean and do a speech in front of you and your wife. You know, those are the kind of things, and that's been finally changed. And I want to point out, President Obama did not even mention the epidemic until his very last year of his presidency, his last year. And the only way that happened is we were on the White House lawn and we sent him 5,000 signatures. And he finally mentioned it in one of his last Saturday radio shows that we had an epidemic in America. Mm-hmm. And that was it. Now, usually an epidemic is spread by a disease, but this epidemic comes in a little bottle from Walgreens, CVS, and Rite Aid. And that's the difference. And it can be stopped if we just don't write so many prescriptions. Mm-hmm. There is a place where it's needed. When somebody's got cancer, severe injuries, not a broken toe. And that's what the problem is. Because the federal government was judging people. Because so many of the senators and the congressmen were getting so much money from the pharmaceutical companies, they supported all that. And that's what we have to turn around, is the stigma thing is still very bad.
So it's been politicized, you think? I mean, is that part of what we're saying?
Absolutely. Right now, we have about 5 good bills sitting in the Senate, and Mitch McConnell won't even let them come to a vote. And these are bipartisan bills to help stop the epidemic. We have a bill that the 2 senators from New Hampshire put in, and that bill says that if you're an athlete and you're in high school and you get an injury and the doctor prescribes an opioid, they're going to have to show you a letter that this is an addictive drug, and the parent has to sign off on it.
Yeah.
That's just the rough estimate of the
bill. In Massachusetts, you know, one of the things that prescribers are being told is you're not going to be allowed to prescribe opioids and benzodiazepines like Valium, Xanax, without getting prior authorization.
Well, the combination will kill you.
The combination can kill you. That's right. And of course, now we've got fentanyl as well. Because remember, folks, you know, once a doctor stops prescribing the prescription pain medicine, doesn't mean that your desire for it goes away.
Right.
No.
And now you're either buying it on the street, and now we're getting all this press stuff, so it's not even real perks. And that's when it's getting even more dangerous, because more and more people are going out there, and they're using. I want people to understand that they're not using to get high. Most people are using to not be sick.
Right, dope sick is the big thing that they're trying to avoid being dope sick, and that's the big thing. We had one weekend in the greater Brockton area about 2.5 years ago where we had 22 overdoses, and all of them were young men, all between age 22 and 30, and they all got the same heroin batch with the fentanyl in it.
Yeah.
And the fentanyl was enough to kill an elephant, and they all died. And that was on one weekend. Now, here's the thing that, to show you we're not over the stigma yet. We had like 15 people died from vaping. And the amount of time that they've spent on vaping, we've had people dying in the last 3 hours. Yeah. And they don't even talk about it like it's an epidemic. Think about it. Every single day in this country, we have 130 to 140 people die. Well, if you look at that, let's say 2 airplane crashes, right, 270 people. Well, we have 2 airplane crashes every 2 days. And why aren't we doing something immediately? Trump said it was an emergency. Well, where's the emergency? You know, when is somebody going to call out and say, this is an emergency and let's stop it? You know, last year we talked about triple E. 4 people got triple E and died. Whoopee-doo. Not as bad for those people, but at the same time, 4 people died every 5 hours in Massachusetts. You know, you got to be realistic about the numbers.
But now there are people who are stepping up and finally saying something. You know, High Point Treatment Center, you know, they've been doing substance use treatment long before it was sexy to do. And that's part of my concern as well, is this going to be just another fad, as opposed to people realizing this is real, folks, and we need to address this now.
Stretch the cat.